guys, hi friends. Welcome to Shiko Hope TV USA. My name is Shiko Hope, and this is why we say Nawezekana. We give you hope. We tell you never give up, never lose hope. Always keep hope alive. Today I'm not by myself, and before I bring up my guest, if you are new here, if this is not your first time, welcome to this channel. And today we are talking money matters. And we have an expert in the house. And because I'm not an expert, let me bring our guest up so she can share with us and teach us more on how we can manage our money. And here she comes. Hello, hello.
Hello, Shiko. How are you?
I'm good. We are so glad to have you today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me to Shiko Hope TV.
I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you. It's been quite some in the working, but finally we are here.
Yes. I'm so excited.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm ready with a notebook and a pen.
Awesome. And everybody listening, get your notebook, get your pens, and ask me questions. And let's go.
Yes. Can you tell us who is Caro and what do you do?
My name is Carol Miner. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm an entrepreneur, and I have a passion for this topic, money matters. And I have committed to educating, and especially here in the diaspora and in the US, educating our people so that we can bridge the gap between our culture and the culture here, our knowledge from back home and the knowledge here. And by profession, I'm an insurance agent. I have an insurance agency. I've been licensed for the last 13 years. That's what I do full time. And that ties to the topic of money. So there we go.
Yes, and that is why I am saying you are an expert.
Thank you. That's humbling.
Now, because you have all the information we need to hear, can you tell us more about basics about money?
So, when we talk about money, we're going to talk about, I call it money 101. It's a very, very basic that we need to understand, because remember, growing up, for most of us that come from the African culture, and then you move to a different culture, money was a topic that we never discussed. It's a topic that our parents, our great-grandparents, our grandparents, it's a topic that we never discussed. If anything, you were told, go to school, make your own money, and life moves on. And then also remember, back in the day, our parents had, their wealth was tied in land. And I've always said, so our parents, generally our great-grandparents passed on shamba to your grandparents. Your grandparents gave your parents. But then as generations go, that 100-acre shamba your parents, your great-grandparents had, now it's only, you're given half an acre. What are you supposed to do with that? You can't really call that wealth. And so our mindset for our generation and generations to come has to shift, because then you start thinking of wealth and money and accumulation so differently, but also because it's something that was shunned. I know most people are taught money is the root of all evil, but really it's the love of money, right? The love of money, that's what it is. But money is not. Because, Shiko, everybody that has a job, where do you go work?
To get money.
Right? When you want to do anything with your life, say, for example, where you live, what do you use to pay for housing?
Money.
Food?
Money.
Vacations?
Money.
Your kids want to go to school?
Money.
So everything, like seriously, everything in your life is surrounding this one topic that we just don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
And so if we create that awareness, then it gets to a point in everybody's life, once you get to that point where first money stops becoming an issue and you stop worrying about it, because now you're not worried about paying bills, you're not worried about being able to afford a good house, a good car. You're pretty much in a place where you're living your dream life. And that doesn't come overnight. Most of us are still working on that, right?
Yeah.
So that's why, as much as we want to not talk about this topic, we really just have to talk about it. Yeah. And then we have to pass it on to the next generation, right?
Sure.
So once you start thinking about it that way, you're like, oh, yeah, by the way, I go to work to make money. And everything I do, gassing up your car costs money. Pretty much the clothes you're wearing cost money. I mean, tell me very few things. Life, we are given air for free, but most of everything else in this world is going to cost you some money. So what we're saying is we want to get to a point where eventually money is not an issue. Money is not, it's not something you're constantly thinking about, and it's not something you're constantly pursuing. But to get there, it takes a lot of discipline. So the very, very basic of money is understanding yourself, knowing first who you are, what you like, what makes you happy. And those things change. Because think about it, Shiko, when we were younger, somebody gave you Patco. It was exciting. Today, somebody gives you Patco, you're looking at them like, are you serious?
I'm not a child.
I know, right? But that was exciting and it cost money.
Yeah.
And at some point, somebody bought you shoes. You were excited. Now you're grown, you have to buy your own shoes. And then now imagine if somebody just gifts you a house or a car that's paid off, So our perception of what matters changes as we get older. And so once we create that awareness within ourselves, then you know where you are starting today. And most people just don't take time to understand what makes them happy. But also, remember in this country, and I'm assuming a lot of your audience is in the diaspora, right?
Yeah, we are viewed everywhere, worldwide.
Okay. So we are going to talk in general. But so, like in the diaspora, I know people work 2-3 jobs to barely make it. And I don't think anybody signed up and said, I don't want to have a life. I want to work 2-3 jobs, 80-90 hours a week, and I just want to be miserable. I don't think anybody signed up for that life. But why do we find ourselves doing those things? Money. Exactly. So let's start with the very basics. The very basics is knowing yourself. Then you know your money. Number one, you have to understand, where does your money come from? So a lot of people have jobs. That's where your money comes from. The people who have businesses, that's where their money comes from. The people who have inheritance, there are people who are given money, gifts. They are stay-at-home parents who are supported by their spouses. So wherever your money comes from, you have to understand, because you're living somewhere, you're eating food, you're wearing clothes. Who is paying for those things? So if you're paying for them, where is that money coming from? If somebody else is paying for that, you need then to understand, where is their money coming from, right?
Sure.
So once you understand that, where does your money come from? And then obviously you have to start respecting where your money comes from, right?
Right.
Then you start thinking. The number one thing you have to plan is, if that source of money dried up, whether it's a job, whether it's a business, whether it's your spouse, if that source of money dried up, what would you do? And because we don't like thinking about it, that's why we just naturally we don't plan for money. But you have to think, like, now we are, slightly past COVID. But when COVID hit, a lot of people lost their jobs, right? Businesses went slow. So if you had never thought of these things, now you found yourself in a place where money was really an issue. People started panicking. And in some countries where they did not have the stimulus packages like the US did, the US did great. It gave people stimulus checks. It gave a lot of forgiveness where people didn't have to pay their mortgages. If you didn't pay your rent, you were not getting kicked out. You cannot get evicted. And those things are about to end. But there's a lot of countries that did not happen. But even with that, in the United States, then they were not giving you food and all these clothes and vacation money. So you needed to figure that part for yourself. So one, you know where your money is coming from. Two, you start thinking, if that source dried up, then what would you do? And that's where now people have to start thinking about savings, about accumulation, and things like those. But then once you know where your money is coming from, then where's your money going? Because you're going to work, you have a business, your spouse is giving you money. Where is your money going? And I tell people the easiest way to know, go back to if you use a bank account. For those of you who use cash, I honestly don't know how to keep up with cash. I had to stop using cash. Because Shiko, if you have $100, do you know how hard it is to keep up with what you did with $100?
It is impossible.
Unless you go get your grocery list and look and say, I bought these, I bought eggs and sukuma wiki, and unless you want to do that. But so for those of you who use cards, it's very easy to keep up with your money. So the first thing you want to do is understand where's your money going. And if you've never done this, I promise you, sit down, go back 3 months and just analyze. Go to your bank account, analyze where is your money going. If you have a car note, if you are paying mortgage or rent, if you're paying food, if you're paying school fees, write it down. People tend to think, oh, I know where my money is going. I'm a pro in this. I'm very good in money. I promise you, the very first time I ever did it for myself, Shiko, I was shocked because I thought I knew how to manage my money without writing it down. But I tell you, you write, for example, you say in April, in May, in June, this is exactly how much I have spent on gas. This is how much I have spent on food. This is how much I have spent on housing. This is how much I spent on vacations. This is how much I spent in giving. You know, you categorize your money. That way you know where your money is going. Then from where your money is going, then that's how you're able to create a budget. Now, let me tell you, our culture, I don't know why, but our culture is anti-budget. I never understood it. Like, people will be like, kwa nini niandike vile natumia pesa yangu? Like, because it just makes money sense to create a budget. But the way you create a budget is because you want to know where you're already spending your money. And then from that, do you know how much you spend on food every month? Most people don't. They just know maziwa ikiisha ndo mimi nimekimbia nimenunua maziwa. But once you start creating and looking and knowing, my household consumes 3 gallons of milk a month, or 4 gallons, or 8 gallons. Then you start knowing how much does milk cost. Most people don't even look. Most people don't even care. They walk in a store, they just buy the milk. Yeah. But once you start creating these things, actually it creates such good habit. You already know, I drink vitamin D or 2%, and you stick to it, and you know where you buy your milk. And I promise you, the day it goes high, you're like, watu waliongeza bei ya maziwa. Yeah. But if you're not aware of it, you just go get it and pay for it, you know? Yeah. So that's the number one thing. You have to know where your money is going. And once you know where your money is going, you create a budget. And a budget is not to limit you. A budget is to help you plan for your money. Yeah. So, and I tell people, especially for women like hair, clothes, shoes, shopping. I'm not one, I don't care for shopping. So, but I know women do like shopping. And so I say, if you like shopping, what exactly do you like shopping for? Say, for example, you love good shoes, or you love good clothes, you like your Brazilian wig. Then once you create awareness, you will know your Brazilian wig lasts 6 months, a year, 2 years. You will know how much you actually spend on these things. So then you start planning for that and say, I, Shiko, love good clothes, or I, Shiko, love shoes. Then you say, I'm going to be buying a pair of shoes every month, and I'm going to spend X amount of money on it. So that way you do something that you like, but then it's planned. Yeah. You're not just up and running and spending money ovyo. Just because you saw me, or you saw your friend with some good shoes, and then you kimbia and just buy those shoes. No. Once you get in the discipline, you know, I buy 1 or 2 pairs of shoes. And then you start thinking, by the way, if you're buying 2 pairs of shoes a month, that's 24 pairs of shoes a year. You start thinking, do you actually need 24 pairs of shoes in a year? Most people have never thought of that. Yeah. Now, women, when it comes to this, we are bad. Ask, why do women have 5 pairs of black shoes? 3 pairs of red shoes? Because we just don't plan. We just buy impulsively, and we just, it's crazy. But once you start creating awareness, then you start planning for these things. Why? Because you know, I like a certain kind of shoe. I love a certain designer. This is how much their shoes cost. This is how much their purses cost, or their tote bags, or their clothes, whatever it is that you like. Then you start planning for it. But once you start planning for it, then you're going to know, is the money that is coming in fitting what you like? Why is that? Because, say, for example, if you're making $10, $20, $30 an hour. And then you work, say, 40 full-time, 40 hours. So if you're making $10, that means you're making $400. After taxes and everything, you do your math. Now that you have a budget, you subtract all the things that need to be done. Then can you afford a $70 shoe? Then you start thinking, oh, I guess I can only buy a shoe every 3 or 4 months, because then that's what my money calls for. And what happens when people don't do this, that's how we end up in debt. And especially in this country, credit cards. Oh my goodness. You know how it is, right? You get sent those.
Talk more about credit cards.
Oh my goodness. Those offers, they come in the mail. They look so good. And the day you open one, then they start coming and coming and coming. And then, you know, I remember when I was younger, I got offered, my first credit card was $500. You know, when 18, 19, $500 was a lot of money.
A lot. Yeah.
I was excited. Girl, wait, they start sending you 2,000 and you start thinking the things you can do and you forget it's not your money. And then people start planning on this money that is actually credit card money. And then we are swiping these cards everywhere, left, right, everywhere. And you know, the more you swipe them, especially if you're paying them, you know, you're going to keep getting offers.
Yeah.
If you're not in the discipline, guess what happens, Shiko? Now you have $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 in credit card debt. And that's called living a life that is not yours.
Yes.
That's not your money. Just because they tell you your minimum payment is, and that's what people look at, your minimum payment. You're like, oh, I can afford $30. This is easy. Oh my goodness. People forget that there's interest that accumulates. And for the most part, if you're paying just the minimum on your credit cards, oh my goodness, tell me about it. It tells you how long it's going to take you on your credit card statements. And then it tells you how much interest you'll have paid. You look at how much money you're losing into these things. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, am I saying that people shouldn't get credit cards? No. I only use a credit card because I don't trust using my debit card in most places.
Yeah.
So, but I use it, swipe it on Friday, it gets paid because I don't like paying interest. Now, that doesn't mean I was there. Can you imagine a 19-year-old being given money that was free money? Of course I spent it. And I was in the habit of paying minimum until I was called out by my mentor. And I had to stop that habit and I had to pay off my credit card debt and now get in the habit of swipe it and pay. If you're not able to, the way you think about credit card, if you're using one, of course, it's a safe way because, you know, with all these regulations and everything. Yeah. But you think, if I'm going to go buy a shoe for $100, do I have that money in my account? If you do not have it in your account, you have no reason to swipe your credit card. If you can't take that money and pay immediately into your credit card, don't swipe your credit card. The other thing people do with credit cards, they assume credit cards are for emergencies. Credit card is not your emergency fund. That is somebody else's money. And they're waiting for you to swipe it and pay that interest. Somebody has to make money. So you have to choose, do you want people to be making money off you? Or do you want to be the smart one that actually makes money for yourself? So I'm not anti-credit cards. I'm just saying when you get credit cards, use them for the right purpose and with the discipline. If you don't have it, if you don't have the discipline to swipe your card and pay it off, just don't cancel them, by the way. Do not cancel your credit cards. Just shred them and forget they exist, period, right? Do not, if you have credit cards, by the way, when we talk about credit, especially in the US, I've heard people say credit is not important. Lie. In today's world, you need good credit because it ties, whether you're in business or you're trying to get an apartment. Did you know they actually sometimes look at your credit when you're getting an apartment?
Yes, they do.
And of course, if you're buying a house, what is the number one determining factor for how much you pay? How do people say, you know how many, there are very few people in this universe who have money sitting to buy $100, $200, $300, $400 home cash. So, And even in business, nowadays, they're going to look at your personal credit when they're giving business loans. So I say build good credit and just put it on the shelf. Don't worry about it if you don't need it. You'd rather have good credit, don't need it, than need it and then you don't have it, right?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So credit is important. So if you have credit cards, I'm not saying close them or cancel them, because also the history of your credit comes into play in your credit score. So if you have credit cards and you're struggling with that, just shred them, keep them aside, work on building the discipline, and then work on it. If you're behind on your credit card bills, do something about it. Because
That's not wise. It's not wise.
no, debt collectors are crazy. I mean, they will call you. You feel like you're being harassed to pay this money, but you're the one who spent the money, so you have to pay it. Yeah. So at the end of the day, once you get in the habit of planning for your money, budgeting for your money, then actually you get to know, I make X amount of money, I spend X amount of money, and this is how much I have left. And even in that, that's how now you start understanding, what do I do with this extra money? And that's how people accumulate wealth. And we're going to talk about wealth accumulation and things like those. Hopefully you'll have me another time and we'll talk about those kind of things, right?
Sure.
So that is very important. I did mention about an emergency fund. People, your credit is not your emergency fund. You need to save money for emergencies. If it's one thing that is sure to happen in life, it's emergencies. Because think of it, Chico. Have you ever had a flat tire?
No.
You've never had a flat tire? You are lucky.
I'm lucky. I have never.
I had 2 one time at the same time. You know? So think of it, flat tire, getting sick. You one day you're feeling well, the next day you're sick. One day you have a job, the next day you don't have a job.
Yeah.
Things like those emergencies happen. If you have a house, one day your plumbing system is working, the next day it's blocked. So, and if you have a house, if you have an apartment, then you just call maintenance and they come fix it. If you have a house, on the other hand, all that maintenance is on you.
It's so if you don't have,
right? If you don't have an emergency fund, then guess what? That's how people end up borrowing money.
Yeah.
And then can you imagine? So now you don't have an emergency fund and you need, something happens. Then you're calling your friends asking for money. And you know how easy it is to borrow money and how hard it is to give that money back.
Pay back. Yeah.
Most friendships, actually, that's how they get messed up.
Sure.
Most trust is lost in money relations.
Yeah.
Because you borrowed money or you used somebody's money and did not give it back. And if somebody can't trust you with money, I don't think they're trusting you with anything else. Right?
Sure.
So to avoid all these issues, people just build a little stash of savings for your emergencies. And when you're building your life, you can we call them startup emergency funds. It's just a little bit of money. It's not your crazy 5, 6, 1 year savings worth of expenses. It's just a little bit of money that if something happens, if you had a flat tire, if you had a plumbing issue, if you got sick and you needed to rush to the emergency room, or you needed to do something special, or even for us in the diaspora, if something happens at home and you need to rush home, your parent is sick and you have to go to Kenya, that's not the time to be asking people for money. You need to have a little bit of money. And I said, credit card is not your emergency fund. So keep a little bit of money in case something like that happens. You can up and go without having to hassle your friends. I've heard people say, oh, I can't believe my friends didn't come through for me because when I had this situation, and I'm looking at them, I'm like, what happened to your emergency fund? Please stop making me feel bad. I am nobody's the only person that relies on me for emergencies is my little baby.
Yeah.
Kids don't know. If you have kids, of course, you have to be, things happen. Kids will go out there, they're going to go play, and then something happens. If your child gets sick and you have to call in work, then guess what? You just lost money. But if
Yes.
you have some money stashed somewhere, you're not too worried about, oh, now what's going to happen to my bills next month or next week. So that's why it's important to have a little stash of money when you're building it. And I say, when you're starting off, we're not talking about building a crazy big savings. We're just saying, get a little bit of money. There are some recommendations in the US to start with $1,000 or $2,000. Put it aside. It's not easy, but if you're not in the habit of saving money, seeing that money in the account. I don't know about you people, but if you're watching and you've never been in a situation where you wrote a check and you're hoping your paycheck comes in before that other check clears. And oh man, I remember those days when we were young in school. It was crazy. And if your paycheck did not come in on time, that check bounced or bounced. If you have never been there, kudos to you. If you're still there where you're actually writing checks and hoping the money will hit your account before the check you wrote checks out, it's about time you start rethinking what you're doing with your finances. I've always said the main reason why people are struggling is financially is number one, you're not making enough money, or you're spending more than you're making.
Yeah.
Regardless of where you are, it's either you're not making enough money, and it could be maybe because you're sick, it could be because you lost a job, it could be because you're struggling, whatever the struggle is, but you're just not making enough money. Bottom line, that's what it is. So if you're struggling financially, that is it. You're not making enough money, or you're spending more than you're actually making, and you have to realize why you're struggling and start fixing that. For example, if it's your issue is you're not making enough money, it could be that you're just working this one job that gives you 30 hours a week, and some days they cut you to 24 hours. Then you have to think, should I get a second job, or should I get some experience or some knowledge, or go back to school, get a certain degree that will help me make more money? You have to make the determination of what do you need to be able to make more money. For people in business, is it that you're struggling with marketing? Is it that you're struggling with your overheads? You start looking at what is it that's making you not make enough money. Then you start fixing those things. So we've said very important things. Know your money. Know how much comes in, know how much goes out, create a budget, and then, most importantly, get an emergency fund, which is a cushion for just in case things happen. So that's just the basics, the very basic, like
the basics of. Hey. Yeah. Can you teach us more on savings? How much can we save, or what percentage?
Rule of thumb is 13%. So, for example, if you're making $1,000 a week, you put aside 130. And so if you're constantly doing 13%, then you find that you're going to be in a safer place, which means if you're making 100,000, 13% of that is 13,000 goes into savings. And then, of course, taxes are taxes, especially in this country.
Yeah.
Pay your taxes. So I'm not saying after tax. I'm saying before your taxes, whatever your income is, you and it's not easy, by the way, Shiko. You know, 13% is, oh my goodness, when you do your math. But you know what? Once
it's worth it.
It is worth it. It is worth it. It takes time. It takes a lot of discipline to be able to put aside 13,000. And also it's because if you think about it, I'll talk about me. When I was younger, I think I was making $8-9 an hour. I tell people we were able to go to school, pay our bills, do everything. And we had extra money to buy clothes and party. And then you started making 15, and then you kept going up. And you know what happens as you go up on your money, you go up on your expenses. That's exactly what happens. We just make more money, spend more money, you know? And that's just human, because there are certain things, for example, the kind of car you liked when you were younger, and as you get older, you're like, oh, maybe I need a better car. Or, family needs grow, then you need a bigger car. Or maybe your dream car and the mistake people make is buying their dream houses and dream cars when they're not ready for those kind of responsibilities. So it's not easy to say, oh, I'm in the discipline of putting aside 13%. So what happens is you just have to start somewhere. You have to set an amount. If all you can do is 5%, start at 5%. And then as you start getting in the discipline, then you keep building. Then, so which means if you're making 100,000 a year, then just put 5,000 aside. And then next year, try and up it a little bit, go to 7%. Then in 3-4 years, you're at 13%. It's not overnight for most people.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's 13% just works perfect for most people.
Wow. And can you advise us on this issue? Maybe, for example, I become disabled, I can't work anymore, but I have bills to pay. What is that money that I must have somewhere to cater for my bills for this time that I'm healing? Or can you tell us more about that? Is it emergency, or is it savings, or does it have another name?
So your emergency is still your savings. So there are ways to mitigate that kind of risk. So what you do, and especially if you're in a career that puts you at risk for some of these things, number one is buying the right type of insurance. Okay? And hopefully we can get to talk more about insurance. I'll give an example of life insurance that has living benefits. If you buy a life insurance that has living benefits and full living benefits, it covers you for terminal illness. And that is something like the doctor says you have 24 months to live. And usually it's a cancer, you had heart attack, a stroke, things like those. It covers for chronic illnesses and critical illnesses. So you get sick, it can still be cancer, but it's not terminal, but now you're not able to take care of yourself. So if you have life insurance that has living benefits, it automatic just helps you. You pull money from your life insurance while you're still living to be able to cater for that. That is one of the best things I have seen, especially in this country, that people buy. You can also buy separate policies. I've seen people buy like a cancer policy or an X policy, an accident policy. Depending on where you are financially and also your family history. Like, for example, if you know you have a history of cancer in your family, a history of high blood pressure, it only makes sense to buy products that help you because it creates the peace of mind. The reason I like life insurance, and it's not because that's what I sell every day, is because I have seen it help people where somebody, if you had, say, cancer runs in your family, doesn't mean you're going to get it. But the peace of mind of knowing that if it happens, then you're not having to worry about bills goes a whole long way. So one of the things you can do, because it's so much more affordable, is when you're building your financial foundation, is getting the right proper insurance. And next time you have me, hopefully, I can talk into details of how to structure these things because they're very affordable. Do you know that life insurance, that kind of life insurance can cost $20, $30, $40 a month?
Really?
Yes.
Without that, you will be paying like $100.
I mean, you can get life insurance that's $100 and $200 and $1,000. I'm just saying, basic life insurance can cost you $30, $40.
Wow, you are coming back soon because we need to hear more about insurance.
Yeah. So
sometimes we became scared because you hear insurance. Now you know $100,000.
Now you can get insurance structured for your budget. But remember in the beginning when I talked about knowing your money, then if you know your money and you know what your budget is, then you can tell me, Carol, I only have $50. I have $100 that I can work with insurance. Then you can structure what works for you. There's so many products in this country. It's crazy. And I believe even in other countries and Kenya and, everywhere else they have that. I'm not an expert out of the US. I know insurance in the United States. So that's what I can talk about.
Yeah, we are going to have you soon. Soon.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll be glad. Oh, that's my happy place because that's what I do every day.
Yeah, because it is not only me who does not understand the issue of insurance. We are so many in our class. The same WhatsApp group.
That's fine. I'll be back and teach that one, the basics and the inside out, and so that people can understand it better and make educated decisions.
So, why is planning for the future important?
So, as we get older, the energy and the time to keep working these doubles dwindles, right? For those
Yeah.
of you who have families, if you have children, you know that how much the money you spend when you are just single by yourself having a good time, and the money you spend when you have children, oh my goodness,
You can't
your
compare.
budget just goes like this, right?
Yeah.
And so people, when you start thinking, so it's something we were not taught to, but naturally most parents just don't think about it. And that's why I'm passionate of young single men and women to start thinking of, first, if you want a family. Not everybody wants to get married, not everybody wants to have kids, but
Yeah.
if you want that route in life, then you start thinking that your life is going to change. You're going to have more expenses, you're going to have more people that rely on you, you're going to have more, your risk is more. So you
Yeah.
just have to start thinking about it. You have to start thinking of the kind of career you're going to get into. You have to start thinking of, what does that life look like when now I have more responsibility? So if you're young and you're single and you're just enjoying life and you're thinking you want a family, then you want to start thinking about that. For women, and especially in this country, so in Texas, I don't think it's every state, but like in Texas, we don't get paid for maternity leave. You can get your 12 weeks FMLA. They don't have to pay you though. Some companies will give you paid maternity leave. So those are things you start thinking. The job I have today, if I was to start a family, are they going to pay me? And if they're not going to pay you, then you have to start thinking, what are you going to do when you go on maternity leave? Because that's 2-3 weeks, a month, 2 months that you're not making money.
Yeah.
Then what happens? That's just the basics of planning for the future. If you have kids, you have to start thinking of when they go to school, when they go to college. Do you want your kids to go to college in debt? If you don't want your kids to have or to accumulate college student loans, then you have to start planning early. But that's why I said you create awareness and decisions. What exactly, as a parent, do you want for your children? So we say, my child is so smart. I want them to go to med school. Med school is not free. Nursing school is not free. Engineering or IT school, none of these things is free. So either you have to start thinking how you're going to save for that, or you have to start thinking of, scholarship paths and things like those. And it's unfortunate. We're in the summer, kids just graduated. They're going to college or supposed to go to college this next semester. But because the parents didn't think about it, now they're in panic mode. Because they're like, my kid is going to college. How am I going to pay? How am I going to afford? And then you have all this access to, resources and good schools, but then you're lost because you didn't plan for it. So that's part of it. The other one is retirement. Whether you like it or not, either you're going to plan to work all your life. I know most people say, I can't wait to retire. And then you ask people, how are you planning for your retirement? And what are you going to do when you retire? Because you're still going to eat. You still need a place to live. And, those days, let me tell you, Shiko, those days where our parents took care of our grandparents, our generation, somewhat, we are trying. This next generation, oh my goodness. If you have kids, ask your kids. They are not putting you in their retirement plan. You know why parents are being taken to all these homes and kids never go back to see them? Because they don't have time for you.
Oh, gosh.
I know. But it is what it is. So days where our parents took care of our grandparents and we are kind of trying. This next generation, for us, if we don't plan our own retirement, tuko kwa shida.
Yeah.
So planning for the future starts from that very basic. Do you want a family? If you're not, that's fine. You start planning for just yourself, and then you progressively plan on that line of thinking up to retirement. And then after retirement, that's when we start thinking of end of life. Nobody, I promise you, I don't think I know anybody who says, I'm thinking of the day I'm going to die.
And that was the next question I was about to ask you. What about death? How do we plan about death?
Let me tell you, nobody wants to think about it. But out of experience, I know that when you plan and you get it out of the way, because at some point we're all going to exit.
Yeah.
I don't know any one person, not one, that has never lost a loved one. People have lost their siblings, their parents, their grandparents. You've lost somebody. And so you know how it felt when that person left. So, and there are people, for example, who have lost their parents and then they lost everything. Because either their parents hadn't planned well, they had all this debt, or they didn't have any savings, and now the kids were left homeless, or they could barely pay the bills in the lifestyle they were in. So whether we want to think about it or not, it's going to happen. Yeah. So why not just plan for it and just put it in the back burner and say, nilijipanga, and when it happens, at least I know that the people who love me, the people who require me to make money for them, are not going to suffer. So several things you have to do in those, of course. And when we talk about insurance, I'm going to go into details about this. People, just buy life insurance. My goodness, I just said how this thing can be 20, 30, 40 bucks. Just buy life insurance. Whether you buy it or not, you're going to die. I'm going to die. Somebody, whether we buy it or not. The question is, yes, like here in the US, when somebody dies, we do fundraisers. We are going to raise 10, 20, 30,000. Then we ship your body home and your family gets to go say their bye-byes. And then that money is gone. Then that family has to come back into an empty place. And maybe it was the breadwinner that passed on. Then what happens? You still have bills. You still have to eat. You still have to do all these things. So why not do yourself a favor and not stress the people you love? And even if you're single, because I've had people say, oh, but I'm single, nobody is going to. I remember when I got my very first insurance policy. I was young, I was single, I no kids. But the reason I got it is because I kept thinking, if something happened to me, the last thing I would have wanted is for my brother, who I love so much, to have to struggle and try to raise some money to, she wanted to be buried in Kenya. Now you guys have to raise 10,000 to ship her body home. The thought that I would actually do that to somebody I loved pained me. And actually, I just bought a policy when I was in my mid-20s. I just bought a policy and I said, you know what, if something happens when I'm young, at least my brother wouldn't have to worry about, and it wasn't even a lot of insurance. At that point, it was just, I never wanted him to struggle. Now, if you have children, if something happens to you today, what happens to your children? Who's going to take care of them? Who's going to feed them? Who's going to pay for housing for them? People, you just have to think about these things. But we'll discuss that when we discuss in details. The second thing you have to think of when you think of that end time is doing wills and trusts. Shiko, so unajua kuna kitu, writing a will is there.
Writing a will, it's hard.
Until you start thinking, I own this car. If I died today, I want so and so to have it. I have this house and I would want it to go to so and so. I have this bank account. It is hard.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, if you have anything to your name, just write it down. That way people don't have to fight. Do you know how many wealthy families are fighting over their parents' wealth because their parents did not plan for that? But then again, people forget that's our generation and our parents' generation. That's generation after us, Shiko. Ati, what happened to my parents? They had what? Inanisumbua kichwa. They let it. Can you
I'm
imagine
losing my
a house you've been paying for 20 years? Umebakisha 5, maybe 10 years. And then your kids are too busy to even worry about it, or even to worry about a business that you thought you were building for your children.
Yeah.
So writing a will is not easy, but please do it. Take time to write it down and plan for it. These things are not easy to do. Thinking about death is not easy, but
Yeah.
every one of us has lost a loved one.
Mm.
We know how it felt.
Yeah.
So you have to think of, if it happens to you, then what happens to the people that you live.
That
Yeah.
it depends on you.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when we talk about death, sometimes we hear like both mother and father died, maybe an accident, and both of them lost their life.
Yes.
And the kids are left behind.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so sad.
It is.
When you think about that,
You have, and especially, I'm telling you, especially if you live in this country, you have to think of those. Because remember, if there's no plan, there's no succession plan, those kids, if your kids are young, then they're taken by the government. They're put in foster homes. Is that what you want for your children? But if you have a plan and say, and we hate, I tell you, it's not easy. It's not easy. But at some point, you have to love your children enough to think, if something happened to you or to you and your spouse at the same time, you would want to know that whatever it is you want for your children, the school you want them to go, the house you want them to live, everything that you want them to have is not going to be interrupted. But it's also easier. For example, Shiko, if you have, say, a brother or a sister, something happens to you, it's easier for your brother, sister, or somebody, your loved one, to take up your children and take care of them when money is not an issue.
Yes.
Sindo, because if something happens and somebody has to take up 2 or 3 children, and now they are already struggling financially, and it's going to be hard. Do you know how many of our people, I wish we can take a poll. Do you know how many of our generation is having to pay tuition for a nephew or nieces or people back home because their parents are deceased and they didn't pay for it? So you have to think, is that what you want for your children? The people who are just mean like that, they're like, oh, if something happened, watachukuliwa na shosho yao.
Yeah.
If that's what you want for your children, that's up to you. But very few parents I know that are going to say they don't care about their children. Very few.
Very few, yeah.
Very few actually even give up their children. We get these kids, we love them, we want the best for them, but we have to plan. We really have to plan for our children.
Yeah. Wow. Carol.
Yes.
The lesson today, hey, we started with high moods, but when we were finishing, we are so low.
Because it's real. Money matters is real, my dear.
It's real, sure. For sure, it's real.
Tunataka hii pesa. We want quick money. Make this money. Live the good life.
Yes, we have to plan.
You have to plan.
Yes.
I don't know anyone, Shiko, I don't know anyone, nobody in my circles that's successful and wealthy that just stumbled on wealth. Even those it was passed on to them, have to do something to keep it.
Yes.
Keep growing it.
Yes.
So even people who inherited, yes, you may inherit a lot of money, but if you're not in the discipline and you don't know what to do with it, it's just going to vanish with you within years.
Yes, we have seen people, they had money, right now they are begging.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah. You've seen athletes who are making millions, and when they get out of NFL, NBA, all these things, within no time they're broke. It's a discipline thing. It all comes down to discipline.
Yes.
Yes. Wow.
Next time you are coming here to teach more about insurance. I can't wait.
Any day. Let me know when. That's my happy place. I love teaching. But for people to understand insurance, it's important they understand the basics of money. And so hopefully when we talk about insurance, people will have looked into their finances, know what is in their, what's going on in their financial lives, and desire to do better, to live better, and to just win. A life of abundance. It's not just having $1 million in your account. A life of abundance is being able to do the very things you say you like doing. Chico, if you like traveling, you would want to know that you have the money to travel. If you like giving, you can't give air. The air is given by God. So if you want to give money and gifts, you have to make the money. So when you live in abundance, is being able to do the things that make you happy and the people around you. Yes.
Thank you so much. Now we learned something. For myself, hey, I gained a lot from today's lesson.
Thank you.
Now I'll go back to my notes. I watch this video again and again until it sticks here.
Yes. And you write down what you're spending your money on, and create a budget.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Carol, for coming. We're so humbled and we appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for being patient. I know you've been trying to get me for almost a month.
Yeah.
Thank you for being patient. And finally, we made it happen.
Yeah, we made it. And where can we get you? Are you reachable?
Yes. You can find me on Facebook, Kabi Caromina. You can message me on WhatsApp or text. And please, if you're going to text me, whether it's on Facebook or WhatsApp or text, if you send me a message just saying hi, I don't respond to those. I don't know what that means. Say, hey, Carol, I am asking ABC question. I will respond to your question. If you ask me, hey, Carol, call me, chances are I'm not going to call you. Ask me actual questions. So if I give you my number, do not abuse it because I'm going to block you. But my cell phone number is 205-821-8601. And text me actual questions. Text me, conversations. Don't do the hi. Oh, hi, Carol, call me. I'm not going to call you. So don't abuse my number. That's my number. You can find me on my website, www.integrityinsurancebenefits.com. You can drop your contact information on my website and I'll get back with you. Where else? You can find me on Instagram. So Integrity Insurance, whether it's on Instagram or Facebook, you can find me under my company name, Integrity Insurance.
Okay, actually, to make it easier for these people to reach you, I am going to pin your details in the description box.
Yes.
So through that, they will reach you as fast as possible.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carol, for coming. We appreciate, and that marks the end of this video.
Thank you.
And before we leave, can you tell these people to subscribe to Shiko Hope TV USA?
Yes, people, subscribe. It's right there, down there. Just subscribe. Honestly, it doesn't cost you anything to subscribe on somebody's page, but it gives back to them. It also allows you to get notification when they go live, like now. And so that next time I come live, you're going to know. So subscribe. Shiko Hope TV USA.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carol, for coming. Thank you so much, our audience, for watching this video. We'll see you in the next one where we are going to learn more in the next lesson. Bye-bye for now. See you in the next one. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.